from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Catholic. This is Marianela Nunez and I'm with my colleague and friend here, Mike Bress. How are you, Mike, today?
Good, Marianela. Good to be back on the podcast with you. We've taken a short break, at least the two of us. I've been on a couple for last week. It hasn't come out yet, but last week I chatted with Mark Zamaro and Pete Sanchez from the diocese on all things fall sports. So that should be by the time this recording comes out, it'll have been out. But I haven't gotten to. What's that? Trust me, that was an easy recording for me. You know my love of sports. So, but I'm happy to be back with you. It's busy time for us, and as we were chatting sort of off mic before we started recording, this is going to come out in a couple weeks. But we are sort of neck deep in back to school. So what's been going on with you getting ready?
Well, a lot of work during the summer times. We don't go away in the Office of Catholic Schools. And enrollment wise, it's kind of like a huge lift from our advancement directors and principals to make sure that we have students back in the classrooms and that everybody's ready with their paperwork and, all the admission stuff, the contracts. So all of that's been going on in our schools and, people are hearing this episode now, everybody should be in and everything should be going smoothly. So that's the hope.
Yes, yeah. By this point, they are hopefully gotten the rules down. We've gotten our schedules down, and the uniforms are good to go. Probably have had one cycle of washings for some of our students. I know my house, we would have gone through at least one cycle of getting them set up. So that's good. And this is sort of part of our topic today, so this is interesting. But by the time this recording comes out, potentially, given schedules, you'll have had your own international trip. We're going to be talking about high school international trips today with our guests, but you'll have had your own international trip, and you are more than me, much of a world traveler. So where did you go? And can you predict if you had fun or not?
Well, it looks like I'm going to be having an amazing trip to Greece and Turkey. And I'll be, traveling by plane, doing also like cruising. And so uh, hopefully we'll be able to go to Santorini and take that picture. I don't know. That's one of my goals. I hope I can make it happen because the schedule, it's a little tight when we go there. So I'm very much looking forward to my first Europe trip, which is going to be now in the fall. So it's I love traveling, but I don't travel as much as my head does. So it's kind of like trying to break that circle.
Yes, absolutely. Well, why don't we jump right into it? And can you introduce our guests for today?
Yes, and before I do that, I just want to kind of like give a little intro to our topic. So, as many of you know, like high school can be a very formative time, like full of opportunities to explore the world beyond our local communities. For Catholic school students, we have some like international trips that often provide unique experiences that deepen both their understanding of global cultures and their spiritual lives. Whether it is participating in a mission trip, visiting historic Catholic sites, or engaging in international exchanges, these journeys can really be transformative. And today we're going to be talking about traveling abroad during high school and how that can really open doors to new perspectives and experiences for our students. We'll be discussing some of these incredible destinations that hold special significance for us, share inspiring stories from those who have gone into this. And also, we'll be hearing from two amazing teachers in our Catholic school community that have been traveling with students for quite a while, more than both of them for over 5 years. So, without further ado, let's just introduce Joya Oasin. She is a Spanish teacher at Camden Catholic, and she's also the department chair of world languages. Welcome, Joya.
Thank you.
Sure, we're happy to have you. And we also welcome Giovina Hans-DaGruz. She is the French teacher of all levels at Paul VI High School. We are thrilled to have you on the show. Welcome.
Merci. Thank you.
Oui.
Yeah,
Oui,
I was
oui,
just
très
going to
bien.
say, how quickly are we going to break into both of those languages, and then I will be completely lost because although
Guilty as charged, always.
Marianela knows that I like every so often to try to break out whatever Spanish did hold on to from high school, and the best part is when Marianela's kids have the opportunity to visit her in the office. I try to speak with them in Spanish, and they always answer in English. Like,
Oh.
don't do this, sir.
Oh,
It's very sweet that you try.
A for
So,
effort.
yes, exactly. So if we go into that, I will do my best to figure that out. But we do thank you both for being here, and I'm gonna sort of kick off my first question regarding, what brought you both to doing these trips. What was your sort of start in helping to put these trips on, and continue to do it as you now. I think we talked sort of off air a little bit as we were beginning the recording that you've done them a number of times now. So, what started and what's kind of kept you going? I'll start with you, Joya.
Okay. Yes. Well, I traveled as a child. I went to Spain when I was in high school. And I stayed with a family for 3 weeks. And then the student came to my house here in New Jersey and stayed with us. It was such an incredible experience. I think the first thing that it really helped with was my comprehension of Spanish. I knew I wanted to study it in college. But just waking up and the first thing that you're hearing is Spanish, and you're maneuvering your way through public transportation and meeting up with your friends, and it was just a great experience. So that was something that I wanted to bring to the students here at Camden Catholic, to see places through their perspective, through their lens, a new lens. And it's always been so exciting. So just based on my own personal experience, I wanted to enable my students to have that same experience.
That's incredible.
Wonderful.
Yeah. How about you, Giovanna?
Well, I took French in high school. I went to Paul VI High School, and I had Miss Canataro. Shout out Miss Canataro. Loved her. And I remember she brought her slides in, and that was the old slide projector. I don't know if you guys are so young, you might not know, but it was the little negatives and the little compartments, and she would show us slides of her trips to Paris. And I took French, and I was just in awe. And I remember I begged my parents. I said, I want to study abroad. I want to do an exchange for a year. And they said, no, you're too young. You're way too young. But we did wind up going to Europe. My cousin got married in Switzerland. She lives in Switzerland, and the whole family went over when I was 16. And we went to Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and Italy. Best experience of my life. And at that point, and when I got back, I said, I definitely want to go back. And then in 2015, in the midst of teaching French, I said, why not take kids to Paris? Like, what's holding me back? And I finally bit the bullet and said, let me just do a trip. And that's how that started. And the kids still reach out to me, and I see their posts. They travel all over the world, and that means the world to me, because I know that they first experienced traveling with me. So it really opens up their hearts, their minds. It's just a wonderful experience.
That is so beautiful. It looks like it's something really dear to your heart. And I have heard Father Hughes is a huge, world traveler as well.
Yes.
And he always mentions that he had it when he was younger. He wanted to give it to people to experience, and that, makes him to continue to do this, tours that he does for the diocese as well. And it's just kind of like amazing. So I think
Yes.
traveling does a lot for opening up your eyes to other cultures and understanding much more. So I want to talk to you about what the students experience when they go with you on these trips, and how, their eyes open? How do you see that happening in some of the stories that you have experienced?
Well, I mean, just to see their faces when they see Notre Dame for the first time, or the Eiffel Tower. I mean, I'm specifically France and Paris, but you could talk about it. Like, I talk about it constantly in class. I do cultural lessons, but there's nothing like them experiencing it like in real life. It's amazing. And they just can't comprehend it even when they see it, especially like the churches, Notre Dame. When they go in, I just keep telling them it's like it's alive, Notre Dame. It's just so beautiful. You can't understand like the construction of it and how they built it and all the history that's inside that church. Same with other places that we visit. It's so different than what they're used to here. It's so old over there. And just for them to experience that is amazing. Plus, they use their French. They love using, they're so proud of themselves. It's so cute how they say, "Oh, Madame, I just ordered a steak and fries in French," and they understood me. And I love that. I think I always encourage them, use your French. Don't wait until the last day, because through the trip experiences, I got feedback from students, and they say, "Madame, I really wish that I used my French on day one and not on the last couple days we were there." And I said, "See," and I always repeat that to my students that are going on the trip. And of course, they take French, so they have a good knowledge of the French language. But it's such a great experience for them. It's just wonderful.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I encourage the students beforehand, give them some phrases and things that they can use. And regardless if they're a Spanish, student or a French student, because I did teach French here at Camden Catholic when I first started. The ability for them, like you said, to feel so good and so confident when they speak and they're understood, to use the phrases that they learned in class. But also just to see, for example, in Barcelona, Park Güell. It's something that's in our textbook that I've showed slides of from Antonio Gaudí, and they go to the place and they say, "Oh, this is exactly what we saw in our book," or "This is what we saw in your slide presentation." It's amazing. They just put, two and two together, and they feel so excited, and it's just incredible to see that.
Wow. And like, kind of like, let's go back and talk about which locations have you visited with your students? What are the most popular trips you've done?
Well, me is Paris. I did do one trip, mostly Paris. One trip I did an extension of Normandy. So we went to Omaha beaches. We went to Mont Saint-Michel and Saint Malo. And then I also did, on that same trip, we went down to the south of France. So we did Monaco, Nice, and Aix, and that was a wonderful trip. It is very stressful, though, when you travel with students, taking planes, trains, and buses. It's a very stressful experience, but it's worth it. And but mostly Paris and France I stick to, because to be honest, even like 3-4 weeks in Paris is not enough time. You don't have enough time, and I'm sure she would agree as well. You don't have enough time like to see everything, experiencing it. It's just, you try and get in as much as you can with the students.
And what about you, Joya?
We started with Italy. We went to Rome, Florence, and Venice, Paris and London, to Spain, both Madrid, Barcelona, and then the southern part and Andalusia. We went to Ireland, and just recently to the Mediterranean coast, which is some of the places that you were mentioning. We did the Italian Riviera, the French Riviera, and then Monaco, which was absolutely gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're headed to the capitals of the British Isles, which is Dublin, Belfast, Edinburgh, and London in 2025. So,
Wow.
yeah, I think for the Mediterranean coast, when you go to Madrid, when you go to Barcelona, they're larger cities and they're beautiful. But I think the Mediterranean coast and the smaller places, the students were just in love. That's what they had pictured in their mind, before they left, the small narrow streets and the cobblestones and just like the scenery and the flowers everywhere. They just loved it so much.
So when you're picking these trips, I wonder, what's in your minds as far as like itineraries, what do you want them to discover? And what's your goal, like, when you're taking the students to these wonderful locations? Like, how do you put those together?
Well, oh, go ahead.
Oh, most recently, I wanted the students to get as much as they could in their time frame. So that's the Mediterranean coast. Like I said, we went to Cinque Terre, we went to Nice and Monaco, and then to Barcelona. So I wanted them to be able to see as much as they possibly could in that time frame. I tried to. Well, my goal, my overall arching goal is for them to have a great educational experience, cultural experience, be able to use their language skills and just see something unique, and be able to come back and talk about it. So I try to do like first Italy and then London and then Spain and then, Ireland. So I try to sort of vary on either language there, or just what I think of something that maybe people have been to before, they're a little bit more familiar, and then something that they aren't as familiar with. So alternate them. Yeah.
That's wonderful. What about you,
Well,
Giovanna?
mine is specific to the French language because they were my students. I only take my students on my trips. There's another Europe trip that goes every other year. We alternate, and that's offered to the whole school. But for me, it's immersion. It's getting them into the culture and the language and the whole experience of just, throwing them in there and having them just navigate through, enjoy, have a great educational experience, culture experience, and immersion is very important. Especially specific to my trips. But yeah, I totally agree with her. Just to have just a very great experience that they can come home to and, think about, reflect on. And I do believe they do come back changed individuals when they travel to Europe, especially for the first time. It really changes them as a person, which is a wonderful thing.
So I have to ask, it's probably a little slightly more lighthearted, but it's something that I experienced in my only at this point international trip, but is the food. So do you sort of prep the kids on what they might be eating, what's how to start? I just remember I was in high school. You mentioned the capitals of the British Isles, and that's where I went, and so it was a bit safer in terms of the food, but they still prepped us and said they cook differently over there, and we all kind of had a good laugh because the first. We get off of the bus after getting, there, and they take us to an Italian restaurant and we have pasta and meatballs. So, it was kind of like, all right, this is a nice transition in here. But, talk about that a little bit. Like, are the kids prepared when they come over? Have you had any of those experiences where they're surprised by what they're having?
Well, I mean, I do prep them. It's really important. First, number one, the portion sizes are different. They're not as large as they are here. I do encourage them to try everything. We have pre-planned, I don't know how her trips are, but we if we have big groups, like they have to pre-plan everything at the restaurant. It's already ready for us when we get to the restaurant because they can't take time ordering individually. So we have pre-planned meals, and then, I have different choices for any vegetarians, vegans, gluten-free, etc. But I do encourage them. I said, you probably will not like all the sit-down meals, but just try everything. And I do encourage them to try, when you walk by a bakery, get the baguette, they're all about that. The croissant, street crepes, things like that. Try everything. Just encourage them. Even to, believe it or not, try the McDonald's over there, because I don't know if you've tried it, but
It's different. It's different.
last time, but it is so good. It's fresh. They have
Yeah.
everything is so right. It's so different.
Yeah,
And
different.
even though, don't eat it every night, but try it, because honestly, that's an experience in itself.
I know that McDonald's has a different reputation in the Dominican Republic than it does here. It's not like just fast food go in a restaurant. It's kind of like, I think the kids to fun day, at McDonald's, and the food is really good. Like, it's not
Different. Yes.
it's different. very fresh.
Yep.
You're right.
I remember when I studied in Spain in college, and every weekend they would give us 500. They still use the peseta back then, but 500 for Friday night and 500 for Saturday night. And we would just go directly to McDonald's, and,
How
get
cute.
the food, and then we'd have a little bit of money to go, and have fun over the weekend. But I did have that same, my students did have that same experience as what you were talking about, Mike, in terms of having spaghetti in London. And then the pizza just being completely different than what they would expect. So, when students ask how much money they should bring, we always say, well, are you going to do a lot of snacks? Or are you going to do a little, do you want to do a taste test of gelato in Italy? So, there's so many things, but just like what Giovina was saying, in terms of the dietary restrictions, the company that I go with is very good about, accommodating that. So it's really good. And again, the students seem to be pretty daring in terms of trying seafood dishes,
Mhm.
off to like the marketplaces when we go there, trying different things. So it's really neat to see that. It's really
Yeah.
good.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You
I'm
mentioned
glad to hear that, because that's I have my palate has changed since high school, and I'm a lot better. One would argue, since I've gotten married, it's not necessarily by choice but by necessity. If I'm going to eat, it's what's on the table. But it's also I did try that while I went, and that was, I think, every meeting. Mine was not through a school, it's through a separate program, but it was, I think, every time we met there was one section on the food, and I think my parents were most worried about that when I came home and said what I had tried, even in sort of, again, sort of the most English, closest culturally to what I had already experienced. There was still just the different ways it was made, and it was exciting to do. So I'm glad to hear that, but I didn't even think about sort of the different dietary restrictions that come up. So that's something, a whole nother factor to
Mhm.
think
Yes,
about.
it is.
it's
Yeah,
really nice
not
that
just can you try it, but are you allowed to physically,
Mhm.
can you try it?
it's nice that you sort of like take care of their needs that way too. Like, as parents who may be thinking, well, I would love my kids to be able to do that, or but there's these dietary restrictions, they are also covered under the trip. So that's
Mhm.
amazing. I wonder too, like, you mentioned that Polo Six has a trip that's open to the whole school, while your trip is open to students that are in your class, Giovina. And like interested in knowing what are the qualifications of students to go into these trips, like what kind of students do you take, and who goes for both of you, Julia?
Well, I teach, I'm the only full-time French teacher. There is another French teacher that teaches French and Spanish, but she only has one course in French. So I know the kids. I,
Mm.
they have me. If a lot of them do continue all 4 years, and they have me as a teacher. So we already have that unique relationship, whereas an English teacher might not have that student every single year, So I get to see the kids and watch them grow, and I talk about the trips. And my kids are great. I adore my students. They work hard. They're amazing, students. So I open my trips up usually to upcoming seniors, juniors, and sophomores. And then we cycle every other year. So the freshmen will get to go when they're older, yeah, that's how I'm lucky that way.
Awesome. What about you? Oh yeah.
I do have the same system in place, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. It's open to the school. When I'm recruiting or when we're talking about the trip, usually the first group that I go to are the people that have traveled. So give them an opportunity. They know the system, what's required, how to prepare and all that. And then their siblings. So that's sort of the first group that I address. But it's so incredible to see when people come to my room and say, Miss Oasin, can I go on the trip? And then I know how much it's getting out of there and the word is getting around. It's so cool. So we have a big recruitment meeting in October for the following, not that next
Yeah.
spring, but the following one, and you can just see that, people have been talking and their friends want to go. So it's a cool system that we have in place, but it's it is open to everyone.
Awesome. In terms of planning for like financially for parents, like what's your advice recommendation for someone who might be thinking, well, that sounds like a wonderful experience, but we may not be able to afford it or plan for it. What would be your advice to the parents?
Would say to start as soon as possible. Like I said, we do have the meeting very much in advance. And with for the company that I use, they have monthly payments. You can pay at any time, a larger sum, but monthly payments. And it does seem to be affordable.
Doable.
It does seem to be affordable, doable. They also have like a fundraising page on each person's site where, let's say there's a birthday or Christmas or something like that. Relatives can put money into there if they'd like. So in general, again, the company I use has affordable rates for everything. So it does seem to be pretty doable. And of course, some of our students have jobs as well, work, so they're able to contribute to their own trip, which is nice as well.
That's amazing. Good job, kiddos.
Exactly.
Same thing for me. I usually plan a year or two, a year and a half or two in advance. We have our first meeting. So the payments are broken up monthly and, it's less per month. I think we might be working with the same company because they do have a donations page for the kids. They can take a lump sum, they can take monthly payments, manual payments, but I do make sure that I lay everything out on the line at my first meeting. And I do tell the parents and the students, think about it. It's a very, very important decision. It's not a decision that you want to make lightly. It is a wonderful experience, but I know it's not, doesn't come without a cost. But usually the trips, they include everything. Meals would be breakfast and dinner, hotel, transfers, the flight information, all the entrances to all the monuments. The only thing it doesn't include is lunch and spending money for souvenirs. So that's really good because it's nice when they go on a trip and then they have to go into they could take Metro. So the tour guide has the tickets already for them. Here you go. Here's your Metro ticket, follow the instructions. And then the same thing like going into the Louvre or the Eiffel Tower, the tickets are already, with the tour guide. So that kind of takes a lot off of us as well. But that is great for them because they know everything is included.
Wonderful. I like that. Mike, you might be closer to that stage than I am. So, start saving now for those trips.
My kids are not going. I have what we call our one, the wanderer. He would end up somewhere in the middle of Europe. As good as both of you are, I'm for some reason he would end up.
That's what you think. But honestly, I've had wanderers before who were, but they were wonderful. They, you'd be surprised. The kids amaze you. How independent they are and how responsible they are. And just, they're really, really, really good when they travel, even though a lot of them, you also have to prep them too. A lot of these kids, like I have a huge meeting where I go over, you have to call your credit card company and make sure you let them know you're traveling. You need a debit card, Visa debit to pull out money. You have to call your phone company because you don't want a $20,000 bill when you get back. You have to know like what apps to use to communicate. There's so many things involved. A lot of kids think they can, like, do we have to exchange money? Do we have to? It's just really cute how they're inexperienced when they get back. They're like bosses. They know exactly what to do. So I did this and it's great.
World travelers. Yeah.
They're world travelers. Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
and that was actually going to be, that was going to be my next question. And you've touched on it a bit, but kind of going into the logistics of it. You've both mentioned using a company. So like, what are the benefits of that? In terms of preparing, and because I think, I joke about a wanderer, but I think part of this is because it's so scheduled in so many ways, right? You've got tours, you've got places to be, you've got times and things. So how much does that play a factor having a company, but also just working through the logistics with the kids that you mentioned that, when it starts to go awry and you've got to take this train in that place because you're just getting out of the city center. So what goes into that? How do you work with the company? Like what kind of stuff goes into that?
Well, I did their tours. They had a Paris city stay, but then they changed it out. So I created my own itinerary because I lived and studied abroad in France for 3 years when I was in my 20s. So I know Paris very well, and I know exactly where I want to go. I know, what area to be in to have dinner. So I custom design my own tours, and you just walk through day by day itinerary. I make sure it makes sense, because a lot of times the people who create these tours, they want you, to visit visit like Versailles and your Disney on the same day. And I'm like, no, you cannot do that. So it's very important that you know exactly what you want and you're not afraid to tell them, especially if you're experienced with the company. They do all the tour planning, and I mean, they pretty much take care of everything, which is wonderful. A lot of the tour companies do that. And as far as the payments go, we don't touch any money. You know what I mean? Like it's all through them. And they have communications with the kids, emails, and then the kids all get an app. Like a month before we leave, there's an app for the tour company where they have the itinerary and where they're eating, and so the kids know exactly where they are, which is great at all times. But yeah, it's really important that it flows well. The pattern of the trip, the flow has to be good. To me, that's really important. That helps so much with alleviating all the stress of different parts of the tour.
Definitely. It's important to have right amount of, when you first get there, you want to sort of hit the ground running, but then give some time for some pause, some rest, reflection, all that kind of stuff. You know what? One of the greatest thing is that we have support along the way. So just creating the tour, like Giovanni said, creating the tour, if we're doing a custom one, and then having, them send us materials that we can distribute or slideshows that we can show, just conversations and Zoom calls and things, just so we know we have that support. And of course, as teachers, we, do a lot of research and we prepare so much. But just to have that additional, we have a tour director who travels with us on the bus. So you just have that additional adult there when we get to a specific location. There are local guides that can give you like the jokes and the stories and the ins and outs. So like everything that we need, I feel like I could probably show, and I have shown people around Madrid in different places, but just to have those extra adults and that extra insight, and to keep it, interesting for the students, because they hear me talk all the time, but it's nice to hear, for them to hear, a local guide give them, well, this person did this here and it's a historic event, and, it's really neat.
That's neat. I was gonna say, like, just hearing you talk about, the students need the credit cards, need to call, the cell phone company. We're creating, responsible young adults. They're learning these life skills that are not typically taught, in their high school normal experience. These are things that they're going to be using for life, like, how to be responsible, how to like be on their budget, like if they're giving $1,000 for their trip, like, how are they going to distribute that to make sure that they can cover their costs and whatever the case may be. I think it's that's another benefit of international traveling and traveling in general. Like, it teaches kids that, they are responsible for some kind of budget, and they need to be able to make wise decisions. So that's neat about that.
And I also say to them, expect anything to happen at any time. Like, just be aware. I mean, safety is very important. I teach them safety, especially with the pickpockets in Europe. Knock on wood, 6 trips, never a pickpocket. Hopefully that'll continue. But yeah, it is a life experience for them, and they do learn a lot along the way. But I do tell them, just your bag could be lost. You could drop something. You could get, just be prepared. Anything can happen, but you have all the contact information. You have everything that you need at your fingertips.
Right. You've mentioned that, Joya. Go ahead.
Oh, no, just like you were saying, Marianela, in terms of the life skills. I mean, group travel, learning how to live with other people, you're rooming with people. That is something you're going to be doing when you go to college.
College,
Yes.
yeah.
Right.
So those type of skills, just like you said, is so important.
And Giovina, you mentioned a word that I actually have on my sticky note here, like to ask you next, and that was like safety, and you kind of like touch on it a little bit. But can we talk a little bit broader about safety and how to like you take care of the students? It's a big responsibility. Not everybody wants to be a chaperone for like these students, because it's a huge responsibility. Parents are putting in you their most valuable treasure. So,
Yes.
how do we go about safety in these trips?
Well, the company that I work with is, they've been around for over 50 years. They have offices all over the world, and they have plans in place just in case something happens. I know in Paris, a lot of things do happen randomly, but, they'll move us around if we need to move around. They'll take us to a different area, take us to a different city. Like they're ready for anything, which is wonderful. As far as personal safety goes, when the kids, I can't say it enough times, and I'm sure Joy does too, with the trips, you know, you have to have a crossbody bag. You can't have your passport on you at all times. You have to have, just be aware of your surroundings. Don't put your phone down. Stay in groups. I always say stay in groups. Nobody wanders off alone. You can also stay with any of the chaperones. We have a 24-hour tour guide with us. So you say it so many times that they hear it a lot before they go. So they become very aware when they're in, their surroundings, what to watch out for. And the tour guide's amazing. I try to work with the same tour guide every trip, but he's always like pickpockets, always watch your stuff. He tells them every single time, this is the area where you have to be careful. But we don't want to scare them either, like to make them think that, oh my goodness, I can't enjoy myself. There's a balance. You have a balance with the two. So, but safety is so important. I give all my students my phone number. They have it, and while we're on the trip, and they also have the chaperones. We divide up into groups, and we have checkpoints. We're basically all together, but it just, when you divide it up with the chaperones, it makes it easier to keep track of the kids when they have to report back to the meetup place. So yeah, it's very, very important.
I would say the same thing. One thing that's so important for me are the chaperones. Trusted teachers here at school that have travel experience that I have traveled with, and also new ones that I haven't traveled with, but just make sure we're on the same page and they understand it's an incredible opportunity, but it's not a vacation. You're there to make sure the safety of the students, enjoy yourself definitely, because it's a wonderful location, but you're there on an official business. And by the way, I am also a registered security guard. So I always tell the group, you have a security
Look
person
at that,
with you when
Julia.
you're traveling. So yeah. So, and we do the same thing with the group split up. So that, that you just have 7 or 8 people instead of, being in charge of 35 or 40 people.
Yes.
I want to ask on while we're on the topic of safety, because I experienced this myself. Have you had any injuries? So when we talk about safety, not just sort of the security, which is important, but any sort of falls or injuries. While in Europe, or well, the British Isles, I happened to fall and break my wrist. So I had the opportunity to see what universal healthcare was like. And so, not to get political on this podcast, but it's all cracked up to be, guys. But it was at least at 18 or what I was 16, whatever I was.
I
So
agree.
have you ever experienced that while on your trips, and how have the kids reacted? It was, for me, it was an experience, a little bit of an experience, and it actually weirdly for me kind of opened me up a little bit in the trip. I had the sort of core group of kids that I was with, but then I was the kid, I was the kid with the broken wrist, and everyone wanted to sign my cast, and it became opened me up, opened my shell a little bit. So have you ever experienced that? Are you prepared for that? Do you have someone who's, first aid certified, all of that kind of stuff?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because on my trip of 2023, the longest trip that I had, on this, when we did the extension for Normandy in the south of France, on the second day, I fell. I stepped down and misstepped, and I got a deep bone bruise in my knee, and I pretty much hobbled. I had to go to the emergency room on Easter, but it was okay. I just pretty much hobbled. It was just a bone bruise, thank God. But I hobbled my way throughout France
Ooh.
for the last, and the second day, it couldn't have been like the last day. It was the second day of our very first day touring, because we had a flight to London, and we had a late, transfer flight to Paris, and it was delayed, and I couldn't believe it. But I went to the emergency room. They were very nice, but I went out with just icing, but I basically hobbled my way through, and it's just
A whole other
work through.
caveat to it, that the
happened to
leader
you
goes
after
down.
the
It's
summer,
yeah,
right?
it's not
Well,
just the
yeah.
student.
I know. I said, there's no way I'm leaving. I'm staying. So the chaperones were wonderful. They stepped in when I needed them to, because I had to Uber a lot sometimes to places because I couldn't walk. But they were absolutely wonderful, and they stepped in, and they stepped it up for me. So yeah, that's true. I agree with her. You have to choose chaperones that understand that it's not a vacation. It is, you're basically working. Enjoy yourself too, but it's the students come first. So
Absolutely.
Amen to that.
I've only really had some blisters, and
Okay.
oh,
not
lucky.
really feeling too good. We went, to a pharmacy, see the pharmacist and get some medication, but really nothing too much more than that, luckily.
So I'm glad to hear that. It's always been one of those memories, and I always feel for the chaperones that, 12 o'clock at night, we're sitting in an emergency room as I'm getting, plastered, all the plaster and gauze and everything. And here I am, 7-8 hours away from family and updates and things of that nature. So I'm always good for the sake of Camden Catholic and Paul VI. I'm glad to hear there's no major disasters on the trips.
No.
Well, so let's go into a kind of like vision trip. Let's imagine that you were there in your specific locations. Pick one of your favorite trips. And can you just kind of like give us a description of how that day went like, and why, do you remember so vividly, for our listeners, to give them a little bit of taste of traveling today? Start
I
with
can start.
Joya. Yeah.
Sure. We were in Spain, and this would go with any of the countries we've been, but we do attend Easter Mass when we go. And our tour guide spoke with the priest at the parish and let him know, so the 40 of us wouldn't overwhelm his parishioners. And spoke and said that we were from the United States, so we spoke English, and that we would like to attend Mass at the church. And they had a woman who was there, a younger woman, who was able to speak both Spanish and English, and she interpreted. She was so excited that she had the opportunity to do that, but she interpreted for us. And they had a big screen that they put up so that we could understand what was going on. And we did have some Spanish speakers who understood, but for the others, it was really neat. I can say also that it's so interesting, and so just it makes you feel at home, that no matter what language the Mass is in, the students are able to understand because of their backgrounds, because of their formation. So I think just being able to attend Easter Mass in any of the countries that we are in is such a great experience for the students. They're away from their families, but they still feel at home because we're together, and they have that experience they're familiar with. So
How beautiful that is. That's incredible. And I love, the fact that they were so accommodating and welcoming, and they try to like translate for you guys. That's always kind of like, it touches your heart. And when you see people go beyond what's normal for them to try to accommodate, it's amazing. So
Yes, I was going to say the same thing about, because we go to Mass on Easter. And this past trip, we had an amazing experience a couple days prior when we got to France. I had sent my tour guide, I communicate with him, and I said, go check out this church for Mass. a couple days before we left for the trip. So he went, it was a church off of the Louvre. It's called I think the Saint-Germain d'Auxerrois. And he said, he FaceTimed me and he said, Giovina, he said, the crown of thorns is going to be here the day that you get here. So the crown of thorns is usually in Notre Dame Cathedral, but Notre Dame is closed because of the fire. So they moved it to La Chapelle, but it happened to be at that church. So as soon as we got to Paris that day, we arrived, on Friday, we went straight to the church, and my students and I got in line, whoever wanted to, and we actually kissed the crown of thorns of Christ in that church. A lot of students kind of just watched, but a lot of students got in line and did it. It was such an amazing experience. And we went back to that church for Easter Sunday Mass. Now, my students learned the prayers in French, so they knew that much, like, the Our Father they could say, and some of the other little prayers. So the Mass was completely in French, obviously. And they had a wonderful experience. They were just looking up at the domes and the stained glass and listening to the singing. And it was just they really enjoyed that Mass. But for them to be able to kiss the crown of thorns was just I did too. It was an amazing experience. It was neat. I think it's pretty much once in a lifetime.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's incredible. I want to ask, because you've both mentioned you've had a number of trips that you've done. So it's, if I'm doing my timelines and math correctly, that you've gotten to have the opportunity to be pre-COVID travel and now
Yes.
post-COVID travel. So, we're all trying to, as much as we can, sort of forget some of the bad that happened with COVID, but how have you experienced that international travel, the differences between, and truthfully, I guess, when you think about all the different security measures, I mean, we talked about security and all the things that happen internationally that affects travel, but specifically on COVID, what have you noticed between, your prior trips and now, sort of some of the differences? Are there differences? What are they?
Well, longer lines, waiting, which is, for their safety.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, at the airport, when your entrances to the museums, just a lot of security checkpoints, cleanliness, things like that. I mean, it's all part of travel, and it's great that places are crowded, becoming crowded again, which is wonderful. I know we were there when they were preparing for the Olympics. We saw a lot of the different things, like we saw from the Eiffel Tower. We saw I think it's the volleyball stadium being built. It was pretty cool, pretty neat. But yeah, like tighter security, longer waits. Things aren't as easy as they used to be, getting into places and seeing exhibits and so forth. So I think I can't think of anything else.
I would echo what you said exactly. In addition, with the buses being cleaned, although I think they did that prior as well, but just, making sure that things are clean.
Cleaner places.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's a good thing.
But it is nice to see. I just recently traveled with the same company to Japan over the summer, and it had recently been reopened, sort of,
Wow.
to the tours. So it like you said, it is neat to see places being able to thrive again, and be crowded and just receiving tourists. It's nice.
Awesome. And as we get to getting closer to the end of our show here today, I want you to both of you to please kind of give an advice to those students that may be listening to our Talking Catholic podcast today, and tell them about if you're afraid of traveling, and or maybe you're somebody who really wants to travel, what advice would you give to students, those who are scared and those who are eager to do it? Do both.
Either one can go. Yeah, go ahead, Joya.
I would say to those who are hesitant to travel is that I have seen such transformative, just wonderful changes take place in students that were shy or hesitant, and they became talkative. some students that were, quiet, and they became so much more self-aware and confident. You have an opportunity to be outside of your friend group and to be outside of the students that you normally have your classes with, to meet new people. And when you are in a different country, bonds can be made, certainly, and new friendships. Your sort of guard is down, you're not worried about what your friends think or anything like that. So it becomes a great opportunity for that. I have seen a couple and helped to facilitate some promposals. I mean, who wouldn't want
Aw.
to go to the prom in front of the Eiffel Tower? That's amazing. So that, and just also you have an opportunity to bond with teachers. You can see them outside of the classroom. We're real people. We enjoy things outside of the classroom. So I think for those reasons, I don't know, for anyone who really is eager to go, I would say, have them talk to their friends. If you are really eager to go, and it would be even better if your best friend or the boy that you sit next to in class would go to, talk to your friends and encourage them to go too. It would just, it makes it even better. So for those two scenarios, I think that advice I would give.
Awesome. What about you, Giovina?
I would say, I think everyone has it, every student has it in them to go. You just need that spark. I think you just need that little spark that's telling you, this is the time to go. And I tell them, if you ever have the experience to travel, whether it be with your family or with a group, with school, go. You will not regret it. And I think that they do. And I said this before, they really do. And I think Michael can attest to this. They really do come back changed. You do come back changed individuals. You're changed. It really opens your mind and your heart to the world. And I think we need that more than ever now. I really do. I think it's so important. I believe the world's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Countries are getting closer together. And I think it's so important that these kids experience this. And I think a group setting in high school with teachers that and students that I think it's a great start to travel. I think it's a great way to start your travel journey.
All right. And so just say one thing, both of you, that makes it cool to travel with you as we get to the really end of the show.
I don't know. It's Madame's, they call my trips, I call my trips, Madame's, choices, or Madame's places that she wants to go. I mean, I see them as me. That was me, when I was in high school. They are who I was, wanting to travel, wanting to, especially going to France. And it just makes me so happy that they love what I love. And I'm a different person when, we travel. We have a lot of laughs. We even though I'm still the head teacher, I just feel like she said, the group is bonded. When you come back, you have all the stories, and, just take a chance and travel with me. You will not regret it.
All right. What about you, Joya?
I would say that my energy and my just joy, when I'm in,
Just like your name.
exactly. I love art and immersing in culture, and the fact that I'm able to share it with a group of students is just incredible. So I think all of my, enthusiasm and energy just, like Giovanna says, gets transferred to the students. They become, an extension of me, or I'm an extension of their seeing things. It's wonderful to see through their lens and see a place that maybe I have seen before through new eyes. It's just a great thing. So I would say, come and feel the energy and get enthused and see the world.
Amazing. Mike, this has been an amazing show today. I think, Joya and Giovanna killed it. It was amazing to hear all the stories. And we thank our listeners for, staying with us for the whole podcast. We know this was an interesting one, so you may be still there listening.
Yeah, while you were talking, I've enrolled at both schools and have signed up for both trips. So
Yes,
I'm
yes.
coming with you. We'll figure out the money situation afterwards. No, this was that was wonderful. So thank you both. Thank you, Marianela. It was good to be back with you. And we'll see everybody on the next episode of Talking Catholic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merci.